Okay. Oh, there you go. And now I see myself. Okay. I'm going to give it a minute, see if a couple people show up, and then we'll start.
I'm going to show up on here and make sure I can hear both of you on my end.
That's a good idea.
It might be a little bit echoey for a second.
Just bear with us, everyone, while we work out some technical difficulties. But I'll introduce myself. I'm Regina. Hi. I don't. Can they see Buttons? Is Buttons? No, he's not.
I don't see Buttons.
Difficulties. Difficulties. Okay. Oh, there you go. Can you hear us, Nikki?
Yes. Sorry.
Okay.
I could hear Bernice. Okay.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to start then. So we wanted to take some time to talk about our service dog program, and that's why Bernice is with us. And we want to just kind of do a behind the scenes look at how Bernice and some of the other members of the team select the dogs. And then if we have time, we'll get into how we move them through the program. But first, I'm going to start off just, if you don't know, we have a service dog program, and we train shelter dogs, ones that are perceived to be or labeled as pit bulls, to be service dogs to help people with disabilities. And we train mobility dogs. We train psychiatric service dogs, and we just trained our first hearing dog. His name is Brooklyn. And I'll be posting more about him soon in the coming days because he just officially graduated, and we're all really excited about that. Okay, so I'm just going to start off also then, we're based in New York, but Bernice, you and the team go and get dogs from all over the country, right? You have a lot of shelters you go to that you go and you look for dogs that you think might be a good fit, but then sometimes you get them back to the farm and it turns out they would just rather be pets for a variety of reasons. They would make a better pet. But can you talk about when you are at a shelter, like what exactly are you looking for? I know that's a pretty broad thing, but.
Sure, I'd love to. So for years, I just want to throw out there, everyone has been trying to get me to make videos or talk about what we select, and it's always a tough conversation for me because I want to make sure that people understand that because a dog doesn't fit what we need for this program does not mean that that is not going to make a great pet for somebody. So just because we're looking for X doesn't mean that all the dogs that are Y are not great dogs.
Yeah, and I think that's important. That's important to mention because, service dog is kind of like a unicorn, right? I mean, you are really looking, that's such a very specific set of behaviors and skills. And sometimes, one dog may be a great hearing dog, but maybe wouldn't be a great psychiatric service dog and all of these other things. So there are so many factors that really has no bearing on whether or not the dog is a good dog who would be a great pet.
Right. Yeah, so when we're in the shelters, the first thing I'm looking at is the dog even healthy enough for me to be making decisions about it? And that's always a tough thing in some of the shelters. Because if I walk by a dog and the dog is hacking and has green goo coming out of his nose, I can't even look at that dog any further for our program because I can't really tell anything from that animal. Then the next thing I'm looking for is in the kennel behavior. So I'm going to walk through the kennel and is that better?
Sorry. Some people were saying they were having trouble hearing you. So I was hoping that would work.
Okay.
So if you can hear Bernice better now, guys, let me know. Sorry about that.
So when we walk through the kennel, the best thing for us to do is walk through without a human that the dogs already know. Because if the dogs already know somebody, you get a very different behavior than if you're walking through as a stranger. So we're going to walk through. I never have a leash and food visible on my first walkthrough because leashes oftentimes will make dogs appear to be friendly to you because they want to go out. They know when a volunteer comes in, they carry a leash. So any of that visible stuff, we make sure we don't have on us on the first walkthrough, just to see if the dogs are interested in us or are they interested in the things that we are carrying in with us.
Well, what about like excitability? I mean, because some dogs are just excited to see people.
Sure.
So how do I mean, and would obviously, service dogs can't really be barky because they have to, behave nice in public. So how do where's that line of like normal excitement that is workable and then too excited, too happy almost, I mean, where's that line and how do you determine? Because again, you're in that shelter setting that is very different from how a dog might be when they're back at the farm or in a home.
Sure. And so we're looking for, I don't mind some barking, but alarm barking or any kind of growly stuff, we're probably just going to keep on walking by. A little bit of barking, like I want you to come over here, waggy. I don't even mind jumping up, right? Jumping up to be friendly. Jumping up and springing across the top of your kennel, that's probably more of a detection dog versus a service dog. So it's so hard to narrow those behaviors down because I wouldn't say that excitability knocks you out because quite frankly, if we're looking for a hearing dog, I need you to have some level of excitability. So the dogs themselves are very different. But what we're looking for in the dogs is friendly behavior and the desire to want to approach us versus go away or, roll over on your back, which a lot of people are like, oh, isn't that really sweet? He wants his belly rubbed, but not necessarily. So we're looking for...
We're going to get, and that goes into being too soft, right? Which is we're going to get to in a little bit.
You got it. Yes.
Yeah.
If all of that looks good, I might just stand back and see. I love it when a shelter is actually already open to the public because I can watch other humans come through and do what humans do when they stop to see an animal or, little kids running up and down the aisleways. And what we're looking for there is dogs that don't get frightened and back away. A dog that remains friendly, even when somebody is a little bit clunky or inappropriate.
Yeah, and that's a key thing for a service dog because it's not just about can they be good with their person and can they do the task, like do they have the skills and the brain power to do the task, but can they handle random people coming up and touching them because even though you're not supposed to do that, it happens. So the dogs have to be able to handle all that stuff.
Right. So then if all of that looks good, we're going to do something that would put just a tiny bit of pressure on the dog. So maybe just stand there and stare at the dog like a person would, not stare at them in any kind of a threatening way, but make eye contact. Is that still comfortable for the dog? And if all of that looks good, I still finish a walkthrough because oftentimes when you leave and you come back, you might see different behaviors. So before we pull anybody out, I like to go through one full time and then a second time. And on the second time, if I'm still feeling like this is a dog that's going to work for us, that's when we'll start opening kennels to pull dogs out.
But once you open the kennel, then what happens? I know this is a really involved process. So just so that everybody knows, this is an involved process. So we're going to be this. You can watch this video again for anybody who's really interested because there's a lot that goes into it. That's why we wanted to do it. People don't realize how much detail you put into selecting these dogs. So once you open that kennel, then what happens? What are the specifics you look for?
So it depends on the dog, right? If there's a lot of dogs that appear friendly at the front of the kennel and you open the kennel and they hit the back of the kennel because they're scared. So I'm going to move on. I'm not even going to bother taking that dog out. Not because that's a bad dog. It's probably a perfectly lovely pet. But once you take a dog out, and I give this warning to everybody, once you take a dog out of the kennel, I don't care who you are, you have some level of emotional involvement, and you have to take yourself and your feelings out of it. So you've already done something that says to me, you're not likely to be a nice, confident candidate for what we're looking for. Mm-hmm. So hitting the back of the kennel or any kind of fearful type stuff, cowering from the leash, we're probably going to walk away. What we're sort of looking for is that dog that's like, yay, I'm going for a walk. I don't even care if they're a little jumpy or stupid, as long as they feel comfortable with the idea that you've just entered their space and are going to loop them with something and walk out.
Okay. Now, what about, so, I mean, you have to handle the dogs though, right? So you get them on the walk and you do that, but then you also, lots of dogs like to go on walks, but then, you know, you got to touch the dog, and because service dogs will be handled. So what are you looking for when you do that? And, you know, just so that shelters know if maybe they think they have a great dog that they think would be good. So what kind of things can they do to know, to get kind of an idea in terms of handling the dog?
Yeah. So before I get to the handling stuff, when we're walking out of the kennel, I am watching for things like, are you ignoring the other dogs? Are you firing off at the other dogs? Are you trying to be playful with the other dogs? So things that would make me turn around and put you back is if you're going to start fence fighting with another dog, I'm already going to turn around and put you back.
So what might be workable though? So I mean, obviously if they're like, you know, yelling at the other dogs, but if it's a playful thing, is that workable, or is that still?
If it's playful, yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine with any kind of playful stuff or ignoring. I mean, I prefer ignoring only because if the dog is so much more into other dogs, it does make it harder to train, and we can talk about that a little bit later too. But a dog that is more into people is going to be our ideal dog. Now, you've got to tolerate those other animals, but you've got to be into people more than anything. Mm-hmm. So once we get them out, the first thing I usually do is just, if there's a spot to sit, I just sit and let them do their thing and see, like, what do they do? Is it a dog that, once out in the environment, is like, what's over there? And does it for too long? So they need to be able to smell, they need to be able to potty, they need to be able to do all of those things, but after a couple of minutes, do they come over and check in with the person, with me or whoever's evaluating them? And you want to see a dog that checks in. If they don't check in, we will give them an opportunity by calling them with a soft voice or whatever, so that and see, like, do they come over, or are they more like, yeah, no, I want to go see that dog over there, or I want, and then we may still try with food and things like that, and if the dog is still not interested, we're probably not going to go much further.
Okay.
But if the dog is interested in us, then we'll start doing some handling stuff. So I still don't have food or toys out. Because I want to see if I look at your paws, how do you feel about that? Are you sensitive? Are you protective of your feet? And we'll do things like a little teeth check. And none of this, again, means you're a good or a bad dog. It just, we need to know how tolerant the dog is going to be of all of these different things.
Right, and lots of dogs don't like their feet touched, right? So if a dog doesn't like its feet touched, like you said, it doesn't mean it's a bad dog or a bad pet. It's kind of normal.
Exactly. And it doesn't even necessarily mean that we're not going to go forward at that point. But if I go to touch your feet and you growl and snap at me, yeah, we're not going forward. But if you're just pulling away, I'm going to look at some other things. So the things that we look at are, and it's different. It's not, I don't do all of the things to all of every single dog. It's just sort of like, if I saw something with your feet, then maybe I'll do a teeth check.
Okay.
So you just sort of up it a little bit and see, like, is there something stuck in your paw and you really don't mind anything else? Because if you really don't mind anything else, well, that's something that isn't that really that
Right, and that's all workable maybe with cooperative care and stuff like that. So
exactly.
it could potentially be something you could work through.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then one of the things we do, and please don't do this with your pet dogs. One of the things that we do, if we're feeling good about everything else, is pick the dog up in the air.
Oh.
Yeah, and that shows a whole bunch of things. Like people think that's just handling, but it actually gives you a whole lot of information on how confident an animal is, right? Because if I pick you up, I've just taken all of your sturdiness and everything away from you. And how much do you struggle? Are you like, whoa, 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 don't do that to me? A dog that we pick up that's nice and calm, that's ideal. A little bit of fussing is okay. And then the next thing I look at is when we put you down. So it's not just about being picked up, because a lot of dogs will tolerate that. But when you put the dog back down on the ground, does it run away from you? Does it get the zoomies? I've been with so many people that are like, oh my God, look how cute that is. He's zooming around. And that's a dog I'm probably not going to take because
he's stressed, right?
Yeah.
Is he zooming because he's stressed?
It's like, I got to release this. And so that zoominess to me is usually probably not going to be the greatest candidate because something else is going to make you nervous.
That's a really important point that like lots of behaviors that maybe we think are cute are actually stress.
Yeah.
And people don't know that. That's just a good general point, I think, for everybody to.
Yeah. Right.
Stacy's asking if you'll explain why you don't use behavior evals.
Well, that's kind of a loaded question, and I'm glad you asked it because I'm not a believer in behavior evals, but I'm technically using a behavior eval. It's just one in my head. So it's not, I'm not using a behavior eval is what a lot of people know as something that shelters sometimes use, not as often as they used to evaluate an animal's suitability as a pet or to be able to go into a home. And what we've learned over the years is, first of all, they're not valid, and nothing I'm doing is really been validated either. It's just things that we have realized by watching over time. It helps us see a dog's level of confidence. So we wouldn't use a behavior eval to see if a dog was confident enough to be a service dog.
And you're looking at each dog individually too, so it's different than a behavior eval, right? It's just each dog has the same exact test.
Yeah, so with a behavior eval, each dog has the same test. You score it. There's different levels of scoring, and but I mean, it's not. We're not looking at pets, and I'm not doing the exact same thing with every dog. It's just sort of through experience how I feel about something in that moment. Does that answer? I guess we'll have to wait for Stacey to let me know if that answers your question.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to what we said earlier. Like, you're looking for something very specific that's very different than the dog that would make a good pet.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's very different.
Exactly. And as our conversation goes, you realize that even though we look for all this stuff, we don't, and we think we found it, we have not necessarily. So,
right.
But we'll get there.
Okay, so Emily, and this I feel like I'm kind of backtracking just a little bit, but what behaviors that can you work with? We talked a little bit about barking and handling, but what is workable and what I don't know. This depends on the individual dog too. So let's just put that disclaimer out there. But what's workable and what is an absolute no that you see? I mean, we did talk about some of that, but are there any other things that are a definite no that you may see throughout your interactions?
Yeah. So it's hard because there's so many more no's than yeses, but things that are definitely off the table is if we've seen any growling, lunging, snapping at humans or other animals. And a dog that's what I say called too soft. So a dog that can't handle any pressure without like, falling over or rolling on its back because it's too nervous to stand up and deal. Dogs that cower too much. Those things for us are off the table because we're looking for nice, confident, non-reactive dogs.
Yeah, and that is a reaction in a way. And I really wanted to touch on that because I know a lot of people don't understand that because they think that they want a dog to be super friendly if they're going to be out in public and they see that as a sign of friendliness. But, service dogs also have to have a job to do and they also need to be able to tell people no sometimes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So as we're talking about, that we wanted this part of this conversation to be so that shelters would kind of know what we're looking for, although again, it's the individual dog, things can add up all differently, but what are some assumptions they make? Like we just talked about a dog being too soft, but what are some other assumptions that shelters make about dogs that would be a good service dog that are actually not correct?
That's a loaded question.
They're all loaded questions.
Some of the things that I would tell you that people want us to take would horrify you. So we're not going to talk about those things. But one of the biggest things is the playgroup rockstar. And while we have some of those in our program, a lot of times the dog that's a playgroup rockstar is way too into dogs and not into people. And it's really hard for a service dog to work as a service dog if his biggest desire in life is to play with other dogs. And so while we love those dogs, on occasion, they fit our program well, like Pepe. Pepe was a playgroup rock star. But the majority of dogs that people think are playgroup rock stars are typically dogs that are just way too into dogs to do.
Can you explain for those who don't know why that is not ideal for a service dog to be too into other dogs?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's if my biggest desire and everything rewarding to me is playing with other dogs, but I have to work for my handler, I'm basically medical equipment, if you will. I can't get distracted and want to be reinforced all the time by playing with those dogs. Does that answer?
Yes. Does it, and this goes into, we briefly mentioned distraction like a while ago, but does this also go into, and I don't know if this is something that maybe you evaluate or look at once the dog is back at the farm, but being overly friendly to people, like too distracted by strangers in a good way, wanting to play with everyone. Is there I know in some respects that can be good, but is there also that's too much friendliness?
There is a line, and we actually have a dog right now that we're still looking at, Drax. And that's our biggest hesitation right now is everywhere you take him, he is so overtly friendly that he doesn't necessarily want to turn back to the person. He's like, oh, I know you. I want to see this person and this person and this person and this person. And while that's a lovely quality, what we're watching for with him is over time, as he builds those relationships with us, can he let some of that go? So I want him to be friendly to those people, but not at the expense of working. So it's the same thing as the dogs, only he enjoys people more than anything. That doesn't mean I can't give him another job, but it won't be as a service dog.
So kind of along that line that like you just said, Drax, like he's like, oh, I know you, I want to spend time with you or be with you. So when someone is evaluating a dog, looking at a dog, I keep saying the E word.
Getting to know you. Getting to know you.
He's going to be mad at me. When you are looking at these dogs, or when anybody is, like you want maybe somebody who's a stranger to look to the dog, to look at them, right? Because the dog, dogs react differently if they know you versus if it's somebody they don't know, right?
Absolutely. absolutely. And I think over time we forget. Like even here, there'll be times that I'm like, "Hey, Ashley, why did we decide this dog can't go into Rikers?" You know what I mean? Because you sort of forget. Like you see the dog the way that you see the dog, and you forget. Oh yeah, when I took you to town, you got scared. Those sliding doors were really scary. So other situations might be scary for you.
Yeah. And we'll get to that, I think, in just a little bit, like the next steps that we do once the dogs come to the farm and then what you look at. But do you take them out before you bring them back, like to look at how they do maybe out in public? Or do you only do that when they come back to the farm?
We try to do that before they come back to the farm, but it depends on what shelter we're dealing with. So sometimes that's not allowed. So if it's allowed, we do try to load them in and out of a car. If there's a Home Depot nearby, we'll take them there because we get the sliding doors, we get the shopping carts, lots of hustle and bustle and people. And again, we're just looking for dogs that are comfortable in those situations.
Yeah.
And if somebody approaches you, are you friendly? Are you scared? We're just sort of observing those things.
So we've talked about, and this is a recent podcast that Nikki and I did, but it hasn't been published yet, but we kind of talked about like having your faves, you know, like you have your favorite dogs, your favorite look. Is that hard to let go of? Because we all have a favorite look, right? All of us do. We can't deny that. We all have that. Is that hard to not, like, I mean, are you just drawn to those dogs? Because I'm sure that's something that shelter workers have a difficult time with, or anybody who goes to select a service dog, maybe even an owner trainer. You know, you see that dog and you want that dog to work. So what's your advice for people to let go of that bias and that inclination?
Don't take them out of the kennel unless you're sure. Yeah, so I mean, I have a huge bias to black and whites. I mean, I think everybody on the planet knows that. So if I see a black and white dog and it's showing me anything that's not going to fit, I'm not pulling that dog out because I know somehow in the back of my head I'm going to make little excuses for, well, he kind of did that, but I don't think it's really that big of a deal. You know, I also come from, I worked at a veterinary behavior clinic for years before I got here, so sometimes it's hard for me to let go of things that it's like, well, if I do this, this, and this, no one's going to see that behavior, but really, I got to pass that dog on. So with the service dogs, you have to remember that they're not going to be our dogs. These are going to people, they could go to somebody in a wheelchair. Like, they can't wash them, they can't. It's just, there's so many things that you have to let go because it can't be about our feelings. It has to be about what's best for the individual dog and the clients that we are working with.
And also, you know, training a service dog is hard enough. So then you have to think about, yes, this behavior is workable, but how much time would it take to work through that behavior for this individual dog? Is that worth it when the dog could just go and be a pet and have an awesome life? So I'm sure that's something you have to weigh as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so once you do all this, like, how long does it take you at the shelter? Like, how long does this process take you before you decide these are the dogs that we think we want to bring back to the farm?
So when it's actually when we've been successful at pulling dogs, I would say we usually look at the dogs today and then look at them again tomorrow.
Okay.
So it's not, and you have to be open to changing your mind. You can't be so invested in, like, I saw this and I liked it. You have to be willing to let some of that go on the second look and really be looking at the dog as if it was the first time you're looking at the dog.
That has to be really hard, especially then once and I guess we'll transition to this now, but once you get the dogs back to the farm and then you have all this time to spend with them, and they're dogs, you fall in love with them, we fall in love with dogs, that's the way we're programmed. So, but when they come back to the farm, they're candidates, they're not yet service dogs in training because you still need to get to know them.
Correct.
So when you're getting to know them, what's that process like? I know sometimes you kind of know right away these dogs would be awesome pets, but they're not right for the program. but what is that period of time like when you're getting to know them?
So, I mean, there's some dogs that get kicked out like pretty quickly. Not kicked out, I should say, reassigned as pets on your couch. A perfect example, we just recently, about 2.5, 3 weeks ago, Ashley and Katie went down and pulled 4 dogs from Lifeline DeKalb in Georgia, who we do a lot of work with. And sort of thought all of them were going to be candidates. They all showed all of the great things. The other thing that we didn't talk about was we do also let them loose with dogs whenever a shelter will allow us to, and walk them through the cat room. So just throwing that in there. So all 4 of these boys in that environment showed confidence and everything that we would look for in a service dog. But when they came back, one of them pretty quickly, he's lovely, wonderful, wonderful pet, but pretty quickly showed a lot of softness around any kind of noise, which, sorry, better off on a couch, because you can't be afraid of a noise and bolt in the other direction when you're helping someone. Our second boy that we reassigned to a couch, Barkley, wonderful, wonderful dog, and you wouldn't have seen anything until we brought him into the office, and he had the most extreme fear response to a flight of stairs that I have ever seen from a dog ever in my life. And
so there's a video of this that you guys took yesterday. Yeah, it's on our Instagram, and I'm going to post it on your Facebook today or tomorrow. It is such a sweet video of you all helping this dog get up the stairs. It's very sweet, but you can also then see like why that wouldn't make for a good service dog.
Exactly. And so can I fix that issue with the stairs? Probably, but it's probably going to come out someplace else. And how long is it going to take? I mean, we've got to work with him with the stairs, because what if somebody adopts him that lives in an apartment building?
Yeah.
So he has to get over it to some degree. But whenever I see something like that, I have to assume that it might come up someplace else.
But that's such a good example of like what we're looking for and what can disqualify a dog as a service dog, because I know like you're concerned about this, and I think we all are, is that when we say a dog didn't make it through the program, that means there's something wrong with the dog, and that's not the case at all. You know, there's something wrong with a dog who has never encountered stairs before and is nervous about them. Like you said, they'll make a great pet.
Right. And his initial response, which we didn't videotape, because once we see something like that, I don't want to continue to set the dog up for failure. So a lot of times we don't have video of the initial response. The initial response was so dramatic that it was like 15 minutes of him like trying to bolt to the back of the leash, like just complete panic.
Poor guy. Well, that'll make it even more special when people see the video. But if you want to go to our Instagram now, it's there. I think Cassie posted it yesterday, but I'll post it on our Facebook later. But sweet. he looks like such a sweet boy.
He's such a nice boy. Such a nice boy, and like every other way. I mean, just an amazing dog.
But somebody, like service dogs, like I haven't talked about my dog. Hey, I haven't done this yet. I don't think so. But you're talking about loud noises. I mean, my dog can be around fireworks. He can be around jackhammering outside all day, which drives me, crazy, but he's fine. And that's the kind of thing, though, that they have to be able to handle.
Exactly.
And it does take dogs are sensitive to noise. So that is an extra special, unique skill that a lot of dogs don't have.
Right.
The dogs that you do think that the other 2 dogs, Bryn and Drax, and we are thinking about renaming Bryn, right?
Yeah. He keeps getting
maybe we'll ask
changed,
people if they have any suggestions.
Yeah. Something good, not Bryn.
Yeah. We talked about Drax a little, just in terms of like his potentially overly friendly nature. But what is it that you liked about him that might, so, because we have talked about like the issues that could crop up, but
Sure.
what were the good things you saw in him?
So the really great things about him, he's super confident. You can take this dog anywhere, and he's unflappable. He's like, yeah, whatever. Yeah, oops, the door hit me. I accidentally ran his toe over because I'm uncoordinated with our electric wheelchair. He just was like, whoops, okay, let me follow you now. So nothing upsets him. He's just sort of like, whatever you want to do next, I can do that. Super friendly with other dogs, but he'd rather be with people than dogs, but he is friendly to dogs. When we took him over to my yard has goats and chickens and ducks, super waggy, rubbing up against the fence to the goats. So he just has this nice friendliness to him and this willingness to go anywhere and do anything. He's just that guy that doesn't matter what you do, he's not upset by it.
You know what we did forget to mention, because I wanted to mention that we're kind of lucky at the farm, and then you have chickens and goats that you guys see how our dogs do with all kinds of animals, because you never know, like a service dog just may not encounter a cat or a squirrel or something. They might encounter,
you just don't know,
animals like goats and chickens and roosters and who knows what else.
Exactly. We also have the horses and the cows. So yeah, we're very lucky that way.
All right. What about Bryn?
Bryn,
what do you like about him?
He's just so he's confident, not quite as bold as Drax. He's confident, but in a very laid back kind of way. So we've sort of already decided that he is probably going to go on to our psychiatric service dog track because he's very intuitive. He likes to be close to people, but he's not really clingy. You can take him anywhere. And while he's confident, he doesn't have that pushy boldness that Drax has. He's confident. He'll go right along with you.
So when a dog, this is something I also wanted to get to, and so you just touched on maybe a little bit what you're looking for when you decide to move a dog to the psychiatric service dog training. But what about the others? We have mobility and their hearing dogs. Like what is maybe a pushy boldness good for?
So, well,
I like that.
I'm hoping the pushy boldness tames down a bit because he's my favorite, but I will let that go. And he's not even black and white. So, so the pushy boldness is sometimes good for a psychiatric service dog. It depends on what we're training for. So sometimes a pushy, bold dog actually does really well with a handler that needs some confidence. So it works kind of opposite of what you think it would sometimes. But where we have found those dogs usually do the best is as hearing dogs, because they cannot be flappable, and they need to let you know that the smoke alarm is going off. They need to be willing to take that noise and alert a handler to it. So we've found that those dogs do best in the hearing dog track, but we have had them do okay as psychiatric service dogs as well.
I was wondering if hearing dogs needed that same intelligent disobedience that a guide dog needs to just be able to tell you no and be persistent when you ignore them.
Yeah, they do. They really do. They do. And those dogs, believe it or not, are harder to keep in our kennel because they also require more from us as well, with training and attention, or they will create their own fun.
Did you guys have to build a dog at all?
We didn't get to that.
Okay. Yep, that was just a question. I wasn't sure.
Oh,
I didn't hear I didn't hear Nikki.
She's asking about the physical structure of
the dog. We can. Let's go back and talk about that.
Yeah, and that would fall under the mobility. So the biggest challenge we have with the mobility dogs is structure, because those dogs have to be really structurally sound. So no back end issues. So a lot of the shorter kind of stout dogs automatically get kicked out because their knees aren't always the greatest. We need to make sure their hips and elbows are good. So we have to really look at them physically, and even if we think they're okay, we will take them down and have their hips and knees x-rayed, just to make sure that we're not missing something, because we would never want to put a dog or a person in jeopardy if the dog couldn't do the work.
Do you, when in terms of mobility dogs, do you look for a dog of a certain weight, or does that depend? Because there's such a big spectrum to mobility work. So
Yes.
does then that depend on who you might place the dog with?
Exactly. It does. It does depend on who you might place the dog with. So if the person really only needs retrieve and opening doors and things like that, and doesn't actually need the dog to physically help them get up and physically be, have the person doesn't have to lean on the dog, then the size of the dog doesn't matter as much, as long as the dog is physically capable of opening a door. And some doors are really heavy to restaurants and things. So the dog has to be strong enough to be able to do those things, but doesn't have to be of a certain size to do them.
Yeah, those doors are supposed to only be 5 pounds pressure, but most of them are not.
No, I know.
Yeah. That's a struggle. Do we have any other questions, Nikki? Is there anything that maybe we didn't cover?
I'm sorry. I'm covering all of her notes. So,
we did have, Stacy asked about, picking the human candidates, but I don't know if we have time for all of that, to get into all that.
Oh, what time is it? I don't know. I feel like that might be a long.
I think that's a different topic, only because we're talking about selecting dogs to help shelters, and the picking of the candidates would be more individual to us, or as another organization that places service animals.
Well, here's the question though, that I think a way that we could sort of address this is when you or Eric, when you're looking at a can, like, so let's say Eric is maybe looking at a candidate and has to just a potential handler. Does he think like, we have this dog that's great for them, or do you guys think we have this dog and we're looking for a handler who would be great for this dog? Or does it depend?
It depends. Okay. So for the most part, we already have handlers waiting for dogs, and so then we're looking for the dogs to fit those handlers. Okay. And it's not just about like, I need a mobility dog and this dog can do mobility work. We also have to match those personalities, because remember, just because this is a service dog and works for this person has to match and want to be around that dog. So it's not just about, service dog equals this particular handler. We really have to try to match their personalities and make sure that they're a good fit, just like you would with a pet dog, because this is their pet that works for them.
Yeah, I mean, the relationship is so close, and so you have to be so in trained with one another too. I mean, it's about being a team.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Exactly. So it's very.
Could that kind of answer Stacy's question, maybe?
I think we should do a second one too.
Okay.
Yeah. It's more about our program specifically and why we do it and how we match.
Yeah, and I think then we can go deeper. Absolutely. We can also go deeper into the individual, types of service dogs that we train, and then maybe talk about maybe the most recent dogs and what we liked about them and what the process was like for those, because it is individual. Like, I think that's maybe one of the hardest parts about this conversation, and Bernice said this a couple of times, that it's different for every dog, because that's the way that we work. Mm-hmm. We're not a one size fits all program.
Right. Every dog, every handler is very individual.
We have two more questions.
Okay.
One is, do we do any DNA testing for any sort of disease markers?
No.
Okay. And Does all the work we do to identify and train service dogs mean self-trained dogs are not valid?
It does not.
Obviously not.
It does not.
That was Stacy. And then she asks, what is the purpose to have AFF, what is the process to have AFF consider a shelter dog for a program? Having a dog in mind already or a general review of dog inventory?
What makes the individual dog that we're selecting?
I'm not sure what she's asking.
I think what she's asking is that she's asking if maybe a shelter will say, we have this dog, will you look at this dog? Or is that the only time we review, or do we just go to a shelter and look at all their dogs? And we do both, correct?
We do both. Yeah, I would say more often we end up at a shelter. I would love it if more shelters called me as soon as they have those dogs. But typically what happens is we're like, we need X dogs. And we're also looking for dogs for other programs at the same time. And so whenever we're looking for dogs for one program, we're looking for the service dogs as well.
So yeah, because I know lots of times you guys have gone somewhere looking for service dogs, but then you've come back with a detection dog candidate.
That's usually an accident, Regina. That's part of the reassignment program. You're not always a pet. Sometimes you get to be a detection dog.
Yeah. And maybe that's another Facebook Live too. Talk about what we look for there. I have to like balls.
Tennis balls.
Yes, tennis balls. That's what I meant.
And we're done. End it there.
Now, is there anything else? Did we? We're gonna do another one. So if we missed anything, and for anybody who watches this later, you can ask questions and we can answer them at another time. We can answer them under your question with a comment, or we can just add it into the next Facebook Live we do.
Great. Yeah. Thank you, Regina.
Oh, thank you for joining in. Thank you, everybody who watched. Bye.
Bye.